Hello everyone, Victor here with Linkswell. So in this video, we have a tutorial, installation, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be doing an install on a 2016 GMC Sierra. One of the things you must know is that there's three different options available for this vehicle. We've got the Gen 5S, the Gen 6, and the XL. Yes, the XL is the 15.6, which is what we're going to be doing in this vehicle. Let's get started. All right, so before we get started, we're gonna go over all of the equipment that comes included in the box. We're gonna identify all of the harnesses just so that you get familiar. And remember, the intention for this video is so that you could watch it over and over again. So by the time you have to work on a vehicle like this, you're gonna feel like you've done it 150,000 times before. All right, so here we are on the bench, everything that's included in the kit. Let's go over all of the accessory harnesses, the antennas, the two wings that you're going to receive. So first off, we're going to have two 4G LTE antennas. These have the purple plugs on them. They are labeled 4G, and it doesn't matter which one plugs in where. There isn't like left and right or 1 and 2. There's simply two plugs on the back of the radio that these are going to plug into. The other antenna you're going to receive is the Wi-Fi antenna. Now, Wi-Fi is just between your phone and the back of the radio. It doesn't necessarily have to be exposed. You can just find a really good spot behind the radio to mount it. Same thing with the 4G LTE antennas. They don't have to be exposed. They don't have to sit on top of the dash. Remember, cellular networks work inside of buildings too, so they are very forgiving. Obviously, if you mount them outside, you're gonna get the absolute best reception, but it's not really a requirement. The fourth antenna that's included is your GPS antenna. This one does need to be either up high behind the dash or on top of the dash for optimum results. So this is your GPS antenna. Now you also have the antenna adapter. This is going to go from the factory antenna to the new Linkswell radio. This is your standard Motorola aftermarket universal antenna plug. Then you're also going to receive these colored plugs. These are your accessory input plugs. For example, this one with the purple plug is your fiber optic Toslink audio out. So if you want to build yourself a really nice DSP based audio system that's all fiber optic Toslink driven, this is the output for you. The fiber optic output on this particular radios is variable. It's not fixed. So that's a really neat feature. This is your OnStar audio cable. It has basically OnStar audio left and right. So you pick and choose which one you plug into. You're gonna see the main harness has an OnStar audio output. You can pick and choose left or right, whichever one you want to have OnStar audio come out of, or you can split the output of the OnStar audio harness and plug it in here so that OnStar audio comes out of both sides of the vehicle. You also have a constant power, ground, and ignition outputs. Maximum output on these is 4 amps. So if you're going to be using anything that requires more than that, make sure that you use a relay network for that. Then we have this off-white plug. I mean, I call that off-white. Some people call it yellow. This happens to be a white plug, so you could see the differences. This is the off-white plug. It is labeled RCA audio out. So this is your 4-volt RMS preamp RCA outputs. You've got your 6 channels, front, rear, and sub. But in addition to, you have the microphone plug on here. Talking about microphone, here is the microphone that's included in the kit. Right angle TS plug. And so, that's where it plugs in. Make sure that you add some tape on here to keep it from disconnecting accidentally in the process of you shoving these cables back into place. As far as mounting the microphone, you have 2 different types of mounts. One of them is your double-side tape here. You can stick this onto the windshield. I kind of like this better. Make sure that you clean the surface on the windshield really good to promote better adhesive against the windshield. And then basically the microphone just pops off through a ball joint, just like this. And then besides this particular mount, you're also going to have the clip-on type that you could clip onto the plastic panel on the A pillar, and it simply just snaps right in the same way that the other one came out. And so that's your microphone. You're gonna have inside of the kit also this black plug with 3 yellow RCA's on it. This is your factory backup camera in, your front camera input, and your side camera input. So you have a total of 3 camera inputs. You also have power out. If you want to get power for your cameras out of this plug, you could do so. Now remember, if you don't use any of these additional wires, like the ones that are on here, like the ones on the OnStar plug, they do have gel tips on them. But one of the things that I would recommend, just as a added preventive measure, put some tape on these if you're not going to use them. That way, again, in the process of you putting all these cables back inside the dash, they don't accidentally fall out. You got a live power line behind your dash and you don't even know it, and next thing you know, there's a short. Same thing with our DVR cable. This is also an additional constant power ignition and ground output. This is used basically for this plug, but if you get our windshield mount DVR camera, it basically takes over this plug, and this is what powers that camera. But if you're not using it, it's an additional constant power, ground, and ignition output for you. And this is just your standard auxiliary audio in, auxiliary audio and video input. It's this gray plug. Now, USB inputs. There are 2 cables in the kit. One of them has a white plug, and then it has a standard USB-A input on it. This is just in case you have music videos, audio files of your choice that you want to plug into here. Now, with all the streaming capabilities on these radios, a lot of times these don't ever get used, but some people do go off the grid. They'll preload some music inside of their hard drive so that they have something to listen to. And so that's where you would be using this USB input. It's to an external thumb drive or an external hard drive. You can use up to 1 terabyte, but make sure that if you are gonna go that high, it's a solid state, not a disk driven type of hard drive. And then the USB inputs with the red plug right over here, there's 2 of them. One of them is labeled phone link, and this is so that you could do wired Android Auto. Apple CarPlay on this particular radio is only wireless. Now, this other input, what it does is you could do, it's long enough to run all the way to the back of the glove box, because that's where the factory USB connection is. And you want to use this because you want to be able to still use your factory USBs to charge. There will be no data as far as wired Android Auto, and let's not mention CarPlay. CarPlay is only wireless, but that's what this other USB plug is for. And then so there you go. These are your 2 additional USB inputs. There is this cable. It's labeled to CanBus. It's basically your AC climate controls. You're going to be disconnecting the factory climate controls, and that plug is going to plug into here. We'll show you once we're inside the car. That's what this is going to do. The other end is going to go to one side of our CanBus module, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. And then the other end of that CanBus module is going to plug into the main harness. The main harness, it really depends on what vehicle you have. I'll show you the 2 differences. And so aside from that, inside of the kit, you're also going to receive a, let me use the white background here just so you could see it. So this is a frame for your SIM card. Now, if you guys know SIM cards, there's different sizes. I've got a brand new SIM card here. So SIM cards have a large frame, which is the pink frame. They have a medium frame, which is the black one. And then the SIM card itself happens to be a small size. Now, if you have a small SIM card in any one of your tablets laying around, but you don't find yourself using it as much, then what you could do is you can use the frame that we include to increase the size of your SIM card so that you can use it in the radio. And then last but not least, we have this really nice silky piece of cloth to keep your screen nice and clean from all the fingerprints. Now let's just go over the unit itself. And so I'll show you the screen here so you can get an idea of what's going on. So it comes very well protected inside of our foam. It comes inside of this plastic bag. But the radio itself, it also comes with these two wings. Now these wings are silver in color. If you happen to have the GMC Sierra Denali with the rose gold wings, we have them available, but they are sold separately. Inside the kit, you're going to receive these nice shiny silver ones. And then just real quick on the back of the radio, remember you are putting this thing face down if you're working on the bench. I would recommend that you don't remove this foam pad on top of it, just because it keeps your knob protected from getting forced down with the weight of the radio. So right on the back of the radio, we're going to identify these plugs. We have the SIM card holder. The SIM card holder is long enough to go directly into the glove box, just in case your customer happens to not be ready on the day of the installation to add a SIM card. You can just take this wire tie off and extend it all the way into the glove box. So in addition to that, we have here our main power plug, which is fused. The HDMI plug on this is an output, it's not an input. If you're looking for an input, we've gone over these accessories on some of our previous videos. We do have a separate module that you could buy for that. Wi-Fi antenna plug, GPS antenna plug, AM/FM plug, and then we have our two 4G LTE antenna connections right there. And right over here is our grid of plugs for all of our colored plugs that we went over earlier. What I'll do is we'll post a picture so you could see how in what order these plugs get plugged in. Be very careful to not mix these up, because if you do, you could create a short. It'll keep the radio from powering on. It could make the radio not turn off when you turn the key off. So be very careful with that. So having said that, let's go over the two power plugs that are included inside of the kit, depending on what your factory audio system looks like. All right, so in addition to all of the accessory input plugs, there's three other bags. One of them is going to have our Chime speaker, gets mounted behind the dash. This is just so that you can continue to get your Chime notifications from the vehicle. There is the CanBus module. This is where your AC plug is going to be plugging into. So one side of the CAN box goes to the AC plug, and the other end of this box is going to plug into the main harness. The main harness has a plug labeled CAN box, and so that's where this is going to plug into. So let me put this AC plug off to the side. With this particular bag, you're also going to receive a very general layout on how everything plugs in. It's pretty generic. There's nothing, special about it, but it does give you a general idea. And, in addition to this, it's kind of why we have these videos available, so that you can follow through and be able to perform the installation like you've done it 100 times, even though it might be your first one. So in addition to that one bag with the Chime and the CAN box, if you have the IO3 audio system in the vehicle, this is going to be the accessories for that. Now, IO3 basically just means no steering wheel controls, no Bose. And one thing to pay attention to is where the factory backup camera comes out of. Now, in these vehicles that don't have the factory steering wheel controls, no Bose, there is the main harness here. Let's go over that together. So we have the main harness is going to plug into the back of the new radio. Coming off of it, you're going to have these loose connections. This is if you ever wanted to use this radio in an application that really wasn't designed to fit in. We have, if you wanted to hardwire steering wheel controls, we have SWC 1 and 2. 99.9% of the time, you're not going to use these because the steering wheel controls are pre-programmed into the CanBus module, so you don't ever have to worry about. It also has a manual backup camera trigger labeled 360 trigger. Again, it's all CanBus driven, so 99.9% of the time you're not going to use this. And then for those of you that are adding aftermarket amplifiers, this is your remote turn on. Yes, it's an orange wire and it's labeled amp EN. So that's what you're going to do with these wires. Again, preventive measure, their gel tips are there, but do tape them since you're not going to use them, so that way these don't create any additional problems in the future. And then the backup camera, would be this RCA here on this main harness. The other yellow RCA on here is the OnStar audio. This is OnStar audio out of the car, and this would be your OnStar audio into the radio. You pick whichever one, left or right, or you can get a Y splitter so that OnStar audio comes to both. Now, moving down the line here, there is a total of 3 other plugs. CanBus goes there, power speaker plugs are here, and then this would be for future reference. It's a multi-camera power plug. This is in the future, if we decide we're gonna have a multi-channel camera interface like we do for the Rams and the Fords and some of the Jeeps, then that's what this plug would be used for. And so then, in addition to the main harness in that bag, you're gonna have these 2 wires. These 2 wires have pins on the ends, and this is because in addition to you using this RCA to get your factory backup camera from the car into the new radio, so out of the car, you would be getting the black RCA, the black harness with the yellow RCAs on it. It says factory cam in, so that's where your factory backup camera would plug into. The other 2 are optional, front and side. The only one that's automatically triggered is your backup camera input. The other 2 are manually accessed through the menu options on the radio. But let's talk about these 2 wires. In addition to the reverse camera, these 2 wires, you're gonna look at the paper that's inside of that bag. What it's telling you is there is a plug on the back of the factory screen. On the back of the factory screen, there's 4 wires, and it tells you which pins they are, 5 and 7, 6 and 8. So you're gonna take those 4 pins and you're basically gonna jump on the face of the plug. You're gonna jump these 2 pins from 2 of the wires on that plug to the other 2. That's all you're doing to get the factory backup camera in an IO3 equipped vehicle to work. So that's IO3, main harness, backup camera, jumper cables. The other one is if you have a more equipped vehicle like the IO4s, IO5, IO6s, and so that's what you're gonna do. Again, so this was IOB harness, IOB as in boy, and this one would be IO3, IO4, IO5, IO6. And so this is if you have steering wheel controls, factory Bose. This one requires a little more attention to detail, because starting with main harness right over here, you do have your OnStar audio coming out of the same plug. This one also has the camera output, but it does tell you IO3 only. Chances are you're not gonna be using this one. You're also gonna be doing the same thing with the other loose wires. Turn on, backup camera trigger. You're not going to use those. Tape them up so that the gel tips don't fall off. And so now, besides camera, OnStar audio, you have these plugs right over here. So let me show you what's going on here. So main power speaker plugs would be these 2 right here. And then we have that multi-channel camera interface plug that you're not going to use. There is our CanBus plug. And this here talks about most audio out. So if you have the factory Bose, we have a Bose interface module, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, how that plugs into this plug. So in these particular models, your speaker output, since it's Bose, doesn't go through this plug. It actually goes into a Bose retention module. You also have this plug labeled SWC. We'll show you which harness. We're gonna go underneath the steering wheel column. We're gonna remove the plastic shrouds, and there is a T harness that's included in the kit, which is this one right over here. It's a simple T harness. This is gonna plug into the steering wheel column connector, right underneath the plastic shroud. And the other end simply extends to the back of the new radio, and that's gonna plug directly into this 2-pin plug right here. There's also the speaker output plug right over here, and that's gonna go into our Chime speaker right there. So that is in addition to everything else that's going on in these vehicles. Now, after talking about this, we have these additional cables that are included in this bag. One of them is your factory backup camera. The HMI module is behind the glove box. You do have to remove the bottom and the top part of the glove box. The HMI module is deep in there, so you're disconnecting a plug, you're plugging it into here, and this is going to be your factory backup camera. This cable is long enough to go from the back of the glove box to the back of the new radio. That's as far as the backup camera goes. Now, depending on Bose, non-Bose, pay attention to these 3 additional jumpers. The CD jumper is a must. The most audio cable plug is a must. So please make sure that you find where these are going to be plugging into. We'll show you as soon as we get into this GMC Sierra that we have here to perform the installation on. Okay, so let's go over the Bose retention module, and let me disconnect the steering wheel connection T-harness. So this is the Bose retention module. You're not hardwiring anything, you're not bypassing anything. It's a simple single plug into this module right over here, and then you're gonna have the factory plug is gonna go into here, and the most audio output plug on the link swell harness is going to plug right in here. And that's all you're doing to retain the factory Bose. All right. Now remember, this is a link swell device. It does not work with any other aftermarket radio. It'll only work with link swell radios. Now, my favorite part about all this, you guys, is Lynx was taking care of this entire setup from A through Z. So here we are, not just hardware developing, but the software CanBus development that goes on with being able to fully integrate this radio into your vehicle. You don't need any third-party steering wheel retention modules. You don't need any third-party factory backup camera retention modules. You don't need any third-party interfacing to make all this work, not to mention that you can't retain the factory Bose with any other application that's not a link swell solution. So again, if you have any questions, any concerns, you're basically going to a one-stop shop, and that's us, to be able to have answers to your question, whether it's the radio or something with the vehicle or the audio system in the car. You're calling one place and not multiple locations for integration to the car, or is it the radio, or is it the replacement module? So again, we're here to take care of it for you from A through Z. So now I'm gonna crawl into the truck. I've already done some pre-work to be able to disassemble the glove box and the plastic shroud underneath the steering wheel column to show you how those harnesses are gonna connect. Go ahead and take a look at that while I get myself situated, and we'll see you back in the car. So now this is the steering wheel shroud. We're gonna need to basically pull these 2 halves apart. And the best way to start that is you gotta remove this handle. And the way you do that is you gotta stick a flathead screwdriver while you hold this handle in place. So you stick your flathead screwdriver in there and you twist it, because you're gonna need to pull it out. So that way you can remove this shroud without this being in the way. And so what you're doing with the flathead is you're squeezing the flathead in between this piece and that piece. So when it's in there, you're literally just sticking it in there and you're twisting it, so that when you have it in here, you just twist it and it'll slide right out. Now let's get the screws from underneath here removed, and we'll be able to split the 2 halves. Once you have the screws removed from the bottom part, a good spot to start splitting these 2 halves of the shroud would be right in there. So what you want to do is come from underneath and stick your panel removal tool right there, and then you'll see how it's going to begin to split, and you can work your way to the back like this. And you can do the same thing to the other side, and once they're split, you'll be able to remove the bottom out. And so since we have already started disassembling the one side, you'll see how this side is also already starting to split. So what you want to do is, sorry guys, a little shaky here. What you want to do is continue to split this half. Now we're gonna find a way to still stick our hands in here to be able to pull this up so that our steering wheel can open up. So once you have the back done and your telescoping wheel handle all the way down, you can slide it out and you'll be able to now release the bottom part of this panel. You might have to drop this here like this to be able to get it to drop down. So the harness and the plug that you're after looks like it's this one right over here. And so get a few zip ties ready, because what I like to do is I'd like to cut the factory zip ties right here, only because it gives me room to be able to move some of the factory plugs out the way. Like this one here, for example, it's right on top of it, so it basically keeps you from being able to unplug that one. So I take the zip tie off and then I move these down just so that I can disconnect that plug. You gotta use two hands. You don't want to force it. Basically, it has a locking tab right over here, and that's what you're pushing to slide that plug out. So you want to be pretty gentle with it. So I'm gonna put the phone down here. I can't see whether you're able to see what I'm doing or not. Hopefully you are able to, but this way I could use two hands to be able to come in here and slide this plug out. This big one in the back could get in the way. So what I might have to do is pull this one out of the way like this, so that I can then disconnect this plug completely out without disturbing it so much. So this plug and this plug that's included in that harness are the same ones. So the new one's gonna go in there, and the factory one's gonna plug into the other end, and the other end's gonna get routed to the back of our new radio. So right before routing our steering wheel control harness to where the radio is gonna be mounted, I'm gonna go ahead and take this panel out so that I can run my microphone wire. And I like to start by just pulling the rubber weather stripping out. What most guys will do, and be careful with this, is all they'll do is they'll pull this rubber weather stripping out. They will run the microphone wire through here and down. The problem with that is sometimes you have airbags behind these panels, and you don't want to be lazy and just do that. You want to take the panel off, and you want to make sure that your wiring is mounted and routed. It's mounted and routed along the factory wiring, because if you just go through here, now you have your microphone wire in the way of the driver's side curtain side airbag. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that it's zip tied along with the factory wire harness, and then it drops down over there under the steering wheel column, and it goes across and eventually comes out behind where the new radio is gonna go. What I like to do is I like to leave a little bit of slack for the microphone, so that in case I'm gonna be taping it to the windshield or using the clip to clip it onto this plastic panel, regardless of such, I like to leave a little bit of slack before I place my first zip tie in place. And you could see, you know, where I've done and I've added a couple zip ties. You don't need a million zip ties, but you want to keep the wiring in a safe spot in relationship to the airbag. You just want it out the way. So I did 3 up here, and then I did 1 more down at the bottom. And so in regards to the rest of the cable, what I normally do is I'll add and I'll use a long zip tie, and I'll drop this in this cavity, and then I'll see it come out on the bottom of the dash right over here, and that's where I will pull it. And since I still have this taken apart, I would then run that together with this steering wheel control harness and make it all come out here where the radio cavity is. And so now that I have the wire already around at the bottom, I'll put my plastic panel back on, and I would reinstall the weather stripping to make sure that's back in place. Now, a lot of people ask, can I use the factory microphone? You know, is that possible? And the answer is yes. You know, the only problem is when you use the factory mic, one, you have to find the wiring, whether it's behind the radio or from the top where the microphone is. You have to find the wires, and you then have to reconfigure the wiring on the factory microphone so that you have a 3.5 millimeter plug that you can plug it into the new radio. That's the first challenge. Second is every microphone is programmed with certain parameters depending upon what device is being used with. And depending on that, it could sound better, it can sound worse than the included mic. That's the second challenge. The third challenge is if you ever want to go back to factory, you then have to redo or undo what you did, redo the factory microphone wires so you could go back to factory. So you can, if you could do all those things. You know, some of us can, some of us cannot. Some of us can but will not. So it really depends on every situation. I always recommend use the included mic, because at this point, if we tape it to the A-pillar up here, I mean, it's damn near invisible. You could put this in the factory microphone location to get creative, but then once the panels begin to rub on this as you're driving, it's gonna create unnecessary noise. So I always tell people, just keep it simple, use the included mic, it'll make your life a lot easier. All right, so now let's disassemble the glove box area. What's holding the top part of the glove box in place, as a matter of fact, what's holding a lot of the entire glove box area, top and bottom, is a T15 torque screw. There are 2 up here. There is 2 more down here. So after you removed the 2 T15s on the top, the 2 15s down here, close the glove box, and you're gonna wanna come down at the bottom. There's 2 more down here. Take those 2 out. They're very easy to identify. So once those 2 are out, you can grab this entire top piece and it basically pulls right out. And so these are the 2 on the bottom that were holding the bottom part of the glove box in place. So that's out. You can grab the top, close it, and that also just pops right out. And this harness here happens to be one of your factory USB inputs. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna go from this angle and we're gonna go under so that you could see what it is that we are after. So you'll see all these plugs into the HMI module. One of them is your factory backup camera signal. We're going to be plugging one of the included harnesses in there, and then that harness is going to run all the way through and come out to where our new radio is going to be. Let me show you which harness that is. All right, so we're still down here at the HMI module. The gray plug is the plug that you want access to. It has a locking clip on the top, so you're going to want to grab it with your thumb, squeeze down on the locking tab, and slide it out just like this. So the harness that's going to plug into that one is the one that is labeled to HMI connect. We're going to grab that gray cable that we just disconnected, and we're going to go ahead and just plug them right in. Trying to do this with one hand is easier said than done. So just like that, made those two. Now we can tape this wire tie off and run our video signal through the back and have it come out to where our new radio is going to go. All right, so these are the 3 USB cables that we routed from the back of the radio. Remember, the one labeled phone link is the one that you would use for wired Android Auto. CarPlay is only wireless. The other 2, one of them is your USB-A, just in case you have a thumb drive with music videos, movies, or music, you can plug it right into here. The other one that's labeled USB, this is gonna go to the USB plug that's on the HMI module underneath the glove box. So it would be this cable right here, which was plugged into that plug right there. And this is to keep the factory USB ports still functional in regards to charging. So all you're gonna have to do is make these 2 connectors. As previously said, it's easier said than done with one hand, but that's where that's gonna plug in. This is the factory backup camera video signal, and then just find a nice spot to zip tie these things up here so that they're not, you know, in the way. And then you could get creative with these other 2 USB cables. You could get something that, you know, has a flush mount on the dash, and then the extension basically just plugs in on the back, or you can just leave them in the glove box. You know, with all the streaming applications nowadays, chances are you're gonna put them in the glove box and forget about them. All right, so now that you've seen all of the harnesses that are included in the package, I'm going to show you how to remove the panel around the screen and disconnecting the factory AC climate controls. Personally, I like to start off with my hands. Tools, yes, but I like to gauge how much force I'm putting into a panel by using my hands. So one of the things that you could do is you can start on the bottom of this panel and then sort of work your way up, just like this. Work your way around. Be very careful with how you pull, because you know you got some slim parts right over here. And as you can tell, in this vehicle we have the factory heated and cooled seats both on the driver and passenger side. So those buttons will be coming off of this panel, and they're gonna get reinserted into our new bezel, our wings. So let me grab this out, disconnect both of these harnesses. We're gonna put this off to the side, and all you're gonna need is a number 7 socket, 7 millimeters, 1, 2, 3, 4 screws holding this entire panel in place. Save these, you're gonna need them to mount the new screen in place. All right, so right behind the radio, we have a USB plug. This is not the USB plug you're gonna use to maintain function of the factory USB connectors. You're not gonna use this screen connector over here either. So these 2 can come undone. The only one you are gonna need is the AC climate control plug, which is this one right over here, that one. Let's put this off to the side. Matter of fact, let's put it in the back seat since we're not gonna be using it anymore. All right, next, what we're gonna do is we're going to take the CD player out. And I want you to remember the harnesses that we talked about in the beginning, the ones that are labeled CD jumpers. Make sure that you have those here handy and ready to go. There's 3 of them. So you pull the CD player out. There is a single plug. And immediately after taking this out, put it off to the side, grab the flat CD jumper cable, plug that in. Just like that. All right, so next what we're gonna do is we have our power speaker connectors on this unit, AM/FM antenna, and we have our most amplifier Bose plug right off to the side. And the yellow one here is a factory GPS antenna. So let me start by disconnecting these. You could get away without having to pull the actual head unit out. Now, personally, I like to use that cavity to mount my antennas in place. It's a really nice flat surface and it gives you tons of room. So on the top of this, there's 2 teeth or brackets that are holding this thing in place. So just push up on that and slide the radio out. And there's the radio in these vehicles. The module directly below, don't necessarily mess with it. All right, so what I like to do is I like to get started with putting in my 4G LTE, GPS, and Wi-Fi antennas right over here. Give me 1 second, let me grab those. All right, so here we go. These are our 4 antennas. And I'm just gonna wipe that surface up here. Plenty of room. Now remember, the GPS antenna, mounts up here perfectly fine underneath the dash here. So let me wipe this surface. All right, so now that we have all 4 of our antennas plugged in, I have the 4G antennas on the sides, I have the GPS in the middle, and then I have the Wi-Fi antenna running straight down the middle next to the GPS antenna. Now, personally, I'd like to keep all of these antennas bundled together just because when it comes to mounting the new radio and plugging these in, you don't want to leave any of them behind and then go, why are we not connecting the GPS, and then find out, oh, our GPS antenna wasn't plugged in. So I'd like to keep all of these antennas together. And again, it's for that reason, just because towards the end, I don't want to find out that I didn't plug one in. And the 2 4G LTE antennas are the same length. The Wi-Fi antenna is right around the same length as the 4G LTEs. The GPS antenna obviously is a little longer. So what I normally do is I'll make them all 4 the same length, hold all 4 of my connectors and pull all my excess towards the back. And so once I'm here, what I'll do is I will put all of my excess GPS cable here like this, and then you can zip tie it or you can add some tape just to keep things organized behind the radio. And then I'm only gonna leave enough slack to be able to pull my antennas about this far out. All of the excess I'm gonna leave behind. So this is what I'll do with the excess GPS cable length, GPS antenna cable length. And then I will grab the rest of them and start to make those also a little shorter. Like this. Okay. So now that I have this one bundle here, I will go ahead and I will tape all of this together. And then I will zip tie. You can zip tie it to the cloth tape harness here, or you can tuck it in to the side on the left side of the radio. You can do this. And this is just to get this bundle of antennas out of the way. Keep things clean for yourself. By the way, this cavity here is also perfect for our Bose retention module to fit in there, or you can fit it down here. It's really up to you. It's not necessary that you mount. You don't have to mount it. And then so what I'll do here is, once I have all these, I will add some tape again just to keep them together, and I will lengthen this tape to be able to do this. All right, so that's it for the antennas. Next, what I'm going to do is, let me grab the Bose retention harness, which is right over here, and I will start with plugging that into the car, which is this one here, just like that. Here's my AM FM, it's the black one. Plug in Bose retention module. And I will put it right over here, just like that. So now the other harness here is ready for the main harness. So this is the main harness, and these are the other wires that we're not going to be using. We're going to keep the gel tips intact, and I'm just going to add some tape so that those gel tips don't come undone in the future. I'm also not going to be using the antenna. Sorry, I'm not going to be using the camera output out of this harness. So I'm going to tape the tip on this. We don't need any unused wires, connections getting in the way. And so these are the unused wires that I taped the tip on, and to reduce the length on them, basically coil them up, tape them up to the main harness, just so that, again, they don't get in the way by dangling loose. So then there's this. The only thing I have left now is my power plugs, CanBus, audio, and OnStar. All right, so since we have our OnStar cable here, we're gonna plug that over here. And if you could, I would add double-side tape to this, just so that you can tape it down here, or you can tape it upside down on this module at the bottom, like right here, like this. You can tape it right there. We're gonna go ahead and add that later. For now, let me just put it down there. Same thing with our Chime speaker. Let me grab that. All right, so here we go. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mount the speaker. So it really depends on how you've done it. If you have basically double-side stick tape this to the bottom of the module, there's enough room so that you could then double-side stick tape the speaker to that part, so that way it's all self-contained. The speaker does have some double-side tape on it already, so you don't need to add any. The Bose module doesn't. So let me go ahead and wipe the surface on that module. Yeah, so once you've watched this video, you know, when it comes down to you guys doing it, it'll be a breeze. I think that, you know, it obviously does shed some light. Here's our speaker plug, which is gonna go into the speaker output plug of the main harness. Plug that in just like that. Now I have my SWC wire. I have already fished it back here. I'm really hoping I can just find it, pull it, and bring it out. So on the same cable, I have the steering wheel control harness, and I also have the microphone on the same fish line here together. And again, I'm just gonna tape the excess inside of this radio cavity, and I'm gonna leave myself just enough slack to plug it in. Plenty of room on this cavity to the left of the factory radio. And so we now have our steering wheel control plug right over here, just like this. So now my microphone is going to become part of the antenna connectors, again, just so that once I'm plugging one in, I'm plugging them all in. Remember, this one's plugging into a different harness, so you could give it the same slack, you can give it less. It's really up to you. So now we have our microphone and all of our antennas here. Next, so that I don't forget, I'm going to be plugging in my AM/FM antenna plug, which was left back on the bench. My AM/FM antenna plug is this one here. Foam tape, thick cable. All right. So now I'm gonna be plugging in the rest of my harnesses. Start with my CanBus module. One side goes into the main harness. The other side is gonna go to our AC climate control plug, which is this one, like this. And then this one's gonna go into the module. So there it is. From the main harness, AC cable into the factory climate controls. Only thing left to do here is our power speaker connectors, which are right over here. I'm gonna leave this still somewhat out here because I need to connect my OnStar wire, which is this one here. I'm gonna choose the left side, plug it in the left. So that's plugged in. So the next thing to do, so here is our USB connection. This one is gonna get fished over to the other side. I started to fish my backup camera harness. Let me look for it. So one thing I like to do, since this camera cable is long enough, I like to use it to fish my camera cable this way, but I also like to use it to fish my USB inputs back into the glove box. So I came this way with it. Make these different lengths. I come this way with it. Make these different lengths. Tape them together. And then tape the camera cable to them so that you can use it to fish these USB input plugs back There we go. So these are our camera cables here, and I can take the tape off so that I can pull the camera wire up and leave my USB inputs here intact. All right, so we're back. All of our USBs have already been ran to the glove box. Microphone's already there. Steering wheel control harness is already there. Backup camera video signal is already here. Right after this, we can start to plug everything in. Let me clean up some of the wires and we will start plugging stuff in. So this is our black harness with all of the camera powers, which you don't need because the factory backup camera is powered by the car. You're plugging the backup camera into the one labeled factory cam input. And so that once this is plugged in, it's not dangling in many different ways. I really like to just tape this bundle together because luckily we have enough room inside of this radio cavity. And you're also going to notice some white caps on the RCAs, like the extra side and front RCAs. Don't remove those. You're also going to notice white caps on the audio preamp RCAs here, so make sure you don't remove those. Let me tape up these other power connections. I knew it. Okay, here it is. Am I the only one who misplaces their tape? Tell us in the comments section, how many different rolls of tape do you ever finish? I was telling John, I'm so proud of myself. I have 3 that are all this small, which means I'm close to finishing that one. But how many of you guys actually finish a roll of tape before you lose it? All right, so here we go. All of the colored plugs like this, what I like to do as well, I like to bundle them together for the same reason that if you're plugging one in, you're plugging them all in. So I like to keep them all together. That way I don't forget to plug any one of them in. And so this, even the ones that you're not using, guys, like the Toslink fiber optic one, even though you're not using it, make sure you add it in there. Keep it in there. Your customers will appreciate that because maybe later on they're gonna wanna add DSP amplifiers, DSP audio processors, and you don't want that to hold you back because you now have to order them the Toslink output cable. So the only one that I'm leaving loose here is the microphone plug. So here's my bundle. Make sure they're all the same length so it's easy to plug into the radio. And out of all my antennas, here is the microphone plug right here. And then let me add some tape on that just to keep that plug from accidentally disconnecting. So I wrap it around the microphone connection first, give it a little bit of a tug to tighten it up, just like this. Just add some tape on there. So here's my antennas. Here is my backup camera excess wiring. I'm going to be running that to this side of the cavity, so that way it doesn't peek out when I'm trying to stuff things back inside of the dash. Okay, stuff that in there. So now we have all of our antennas, the color plugs, and the main power plug for the new radio. And let's not forget our AM FM. Everything else is already here. And that's how simple this is. I mean, look, I didn't have to cut a single wire. I didn't have to splice a single wire. I didn't use not one butt connector. I used some tape. I could have used zip ties. It's really up to you. I mean, really, it gets no easier than this. So streamlined, it's ridiculous. Let me grab the radio, hold it on the palm of my hand while I make all of my connections, and then we'll get this party started. Okay, so we're back in the car. Grab the foam that came with the radio so that you can set the radio down like this on its face. This way you have the opportunity to fish the SIM card holder down the same direction that your USBs got routed through. And that way you can leave this SIM card tray in an easily accessible location for future reference. So let me do this. I'll do that in there. And now I can grab the SIM card holder. Looks like it's going in the wrong direction. It wants to go in the wrong hole. Okay, here we go. So now there's that, easily accessible. Now, since the radio is still here, we're going to be making all of the rest of our connections. I like to put it down sideways like this, just because the plugs are right here and I can see them. So now we have, I'll start with the antennas. Because if you start with these plugs on the grid, based on how the antennas are, you're gonna have a hard time getting access to the 4G LTE antennas. So I like to start with those first. So purple antennas first. AM FM might be last just because of the length of the cable. I won't have enough slack to do it here. So here's my GPS antenna. Wi-Fi. Again, we'll post a picture so you could see the right order as far as where these plugs go. It's crucial that you make sure that those are plugged into the right spot. So we now have let me plug these colored plugs in, and then we'll come in to put the radio in place and we'll turn on the ignition. All right guys, so we have all of our harnesses plugged into the car. We have all of our connectors plugged into the back of the radio. Now basically, you know, what I like to do is I'll pick up the radio with my right hand, I'll lay it on my arm, and then with my left hand, I'll start basically putting things into place so that I can then put the radio in its place. Now, by the time you do that, you want to make sure that you have one of these screws ready to go so that you can put it on there, you know, put one in there so it can hold it in place for you. That way you can start testing things before assembling the whole thing together. So let's get this going. One on this side here, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm just kind of holding it up to keep it from coming down. If you're putting a lot of pressure to get the bolts to line up and lay against the car subframe, then you're putting too much pressure. I didn't tighten it up all the way. I'm going to work with the rest of my mounting screws here. So you shouldn't have to put a lot of weight on it. Okay, see how it's doing this here? It's definitely caught on something. So let me back this one out and rearrange my harnesses behind it to keep it from doing that. And it's doing that on the main power plugs. So let me move those down just a little bit. Yep. So now this one on the bottom right and the top left are engaging without that movement that I had earlier. So again, I'm just using this to kind of hold it in place for me. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the screen. They're not tightened up all the way, but they are all the way in. So radio is in. We should be ready to now turn the ignition on and take a look at what's going on. So here's our boot up process. Now remember, you're only gonna see this boot up screen once from when the time you power it up the first time, because every time after that, the fast boot feature is what takes over that. Once the radio has booted up the first time, every time you turn it off and turn it back on, it's gonna turn on almost immediately. So that boot up screen, you're only gonna see once. I don't know if you noticed, but it went like bright and then it went dim. That's because we're inside of a garage and the lights went to night mode. So as you can see, the bottom banner here is black. If I turn the lights off, we get our screen to come back up and we have the white banner over here. So the first thing I like to do is I like to go to radio. So swipe up from the home screen. I see radio and then I'm at volume 10. So just so that, you know, just in case that's too loud, I'm gonna turn it down to like 5. And then I'm gonna go to radio because I wanna hear some static already. So now I have radio is up and running. I have static. Let me turn the volume up. Okay, that means my Bose retention module is good and I'm getting audio. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and tune in a frequency just to make sure that my antenna's plugged in and I'm getting good reception. So I'll do this and I'll start going through different FM stations just to make sure that I'm getting good reception. Right? I haven't adjusted any audio. I haven't turned it up to see, you know, how loud it gets. I'm not there yet. So now that I have volume and AM FM tested to make sure it's working, if you swipe up from the radio like this, you're gonna expose your presets. The reason why I like to do that is because the presets that it's selected is blue and the ones that are not selected are black. So here's where I test my volume. Volume up. Volume down. And preset up, preset down, which is track up, track down on the left side. It went to the next preset, next preset, and then I'm gonna go down, previous preset, previous preset. So that's working now. Now this particular vehicle has a secondary function on the steering wheel controls. So if you press it once, it goes preset up, okay? If you press and hold it, it does seek up. So it's seeking through the different radio stations. This is seek up, press and hold it down, it'll do a seek down function. So our connection with the T-harness underneath the steering wheel column is great. My volume is up and down is good. Audio, so far we're doing great. So this is just kind of what I go through right after the initial install. Next, with these vehicles, you want to make sure that you turn it on to be able to make sure that the backup camera image comes through. So let me start the vehicle. You see that? Turned off, turned back on immediately. So now that the vehicle is on, I'm gonna throw it in reverse. Two things, backup cameras here, and my parking sensors are detecting. I heard the audio. The garage is down in the back. So this helps me test parking sensors and the backup camera image. My active guidelines are also there. Put that back in the middle. Let me turn it off. I am inside of a garage with the doors closed. It was still in reverse. Backup camera went off. So remember, in these vehicles, you can't just be in ignition and have your backup camera come on. You have to start the car. Otherwise, you get a no signal message. So let's put that back in park. Get my home screen back. We're still in dark mode because when these trucks come on, the lights come on. If you're in an area where the light sensor doesn't sense any sunlight, so it turns the lights on. So my radio is in night mode. I'm gonna turn off the lights. Let me expose. Now I'm gonna expose some more of this. Remember, besides this plastic, there's also a plastic temp screen protector. Okay, plastic one that's on there. So that's as far as my audio, backup camera, steering wheel controls goes. The only other feature that we could go over now is pairing a iPhone, just so you could see the pairing process. Let's go ahead and do that just so you can get an idea. All right, so we're back from the home screen. Before I go into Bluetooth to pair my phone to this radio, make sure that you open up the Car Auto application. The Car Auto application has a hexagon button right here on the bottom right. So when you touch that, it's gonna open up a list of menu options. One of those options is allow auto boot. What you're telling this app is whenever the car turns on, make sure you launch and connect to my phone. So I'll turn that function on. I'll hit the two squares on the bottom right. I will then look at all the applications that I have running and I will turn off Car Auto. I will then go back to Bluetooth. Upper right hand corner chain link takes you into pair new device. So then once you touch pair new device, the radio is going to start to scan. On your phone, go to settings, go to Bluetooth, searching for Bluetooth devices. My phone should come up on the radio screen, or 645F is the radio coming through my phone. So I'm going to select it on my phone. There's my name. It's asking me to pair. Select pair. Yes, allow contacts. And now the Car Auto app is going to automatically launch. Pay attention to your phone because it's going to ask you to use CarPlay. So I selected yes, use CarPlay. Now my phone is connecting to Car Auto so that CarPlay can launch. And so that's how easy it is to pair your phone for CarPlay. And it is exactly the same way if you want to pair an Android phone. So here's CarPlay in all of its glory. These are all the different apps. So here's my mapping. Here's my YouTube music application. All right, so if I want to come in here and play something, you're playing. Next thing, what I will do is, if you notice that the volume is a little low, like I just did, go into settings, upper right hand corner, go to system, first option, setting guide, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 option, factory amp is off, so make sure that's off, because if it's on, it's going to lower the volume. If I go to audio up at the top, if I go to audio, I'm going to go ahead and go into sound gain, and I'm going to increase others. That's my CarPlay audio. We're going to make sure that I can turn that up. From the home screen, swipe up, go into DSP, and this is your 16 band EQ from 20 to 20,000 hertz. To the left, you have your frequency selector for your low, mids, and highs, your crossover settings, subwoofer gain control. This is for aftermarket subwoofer. So this is your subwoofer output, RCA output. And then your mids and highs do control your speakers now. Staging. Okay. So then the next thing I would do is go into car settings, under console set. This is where all of the vehicle control functions from the radio. Remember, the factory radio has vehicle control functions. This is where all that is. So this is how our radio integrates into the car. So to give you an idea, we don't leave anything out. You want to make sure that, you know, if the customer is missing some settings or things like that, this is where you want to come in and take a look at it. But this is basically your vehicle control functions that the factory radio had the ability to control. So now that we're here, the only thing that's left to do in my case is to adjust the EQ so that I can start getting basically, you know, better sound quality, adjusting it back and forth. Next, I'll show you the wings. Let me go ahead and put the other screws. We'll snap in the wings just so you can get an idea of how it all looks once it's all put back together. All right, guys, so here we are. One more thing before we actually can say that we're done here. We got to make sure that on the factory panel, you remove 6 of these metal locking tabs. You want to make sure you remove 6 of them because they're going to get transferred onto the new wings that are going to go here. So make sure that you remove them and you put them onto the new wings. And don't forget, this vehicle has the factory heated and cooled seats. So we're going to be removing the buttons from both right and left sides. And the only thing you're doing is on the back side, on the top and on the bottom, there's a little push thing. You push it down and you can basically slide the button forward and it slides out just like that. So this is the one that I have in my hand is the driver's side. So I'm going to grab the driver's side wing, and these also have 2 locking tabs very similar to the factory one. So you're going to basically push and slide forward, and then you're going to slide factory controls right in there. Snaps right in. Driver's side, and passenger side. Slide those out. Pop these in. I mean, you guys, it gets no easier than this. So then we're gonna put the wings on, plug in our heated, cooled seats in place, and then we're gonna go over AC climate control settings. All right, so our wings are now in place. Let's go ahead and go over AC climate control settings. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is when it comes to links well, make sure that you get familiar with factory climate controls, because there's auto AC and then there's manual AC. Now, the difference between the two is the auto AC has temperature controls for both passenger and driver. The manual AC only has one temp control for both sides. So whether you're doing a Dodge Ram, whether you're doing an F-150, or you're doing basically a Chevy, you're always gonna keep in mind auto AC or manual AC, because in this case, we have auto AC climate controls. What that means is that once we go set our AC climate controls, you're gonna get in here in the settings, under system, first option setting guide, first option car model AC. See, right now it says General Motors Silverado manual AC. That would be wrong. Make sure that you select auto AC. The radio is gonna pop up and ask you to confirm it. Press OK. The radio by itself turns off, turns back on, basically reboots itself to save those settings. So once we turn it back on, I will start the vehicle, and then we'll go over AC climate controls. All right, so the radio has now booted back up. I'm gonna go ahead and, well, here it is, auto connecting to my phone. So CarPlay is already automatically connected. Let me go to the home screen. I'm gonna go ahead and start the car. I'm gonna go into settings. Sorry, let me get into climate. So now I have my fan speed up, fan speed down. And if you look, our temperature control is on the bottom banner. Simply swipe over to the left. Now we have our temperature controls. So I'm going temperature up, temperature down, and both passenger and driver side are changing. So temp up, okay, temp down. Now, you guys already knew this. Our volume knob, obviously, yes, it's volume, but it's also, when you swipe over to the left, it's a quick, easy access to fan speed up, fan speed down, counterclockwise. You push it in, it'll also control temperature. So temperature up is clockwise, temperature down is counterclockwise. Now, once you come in here and you adjust the passenger side temperature, notice what happens to the sync button. It's gonna light up because now it's basically in independent climate controls mode. So now I'm gonna adjust the passenger side. Temperature down on the passenger side, driver side stays intact. Sync button came on. I'm continuing to adjust the passenger side. Sync button is still on. The minute I press the sync button, right now the driver is set to 75, passenger side is set to 62. Once I press the climate button, once I press the sync button, you'll notice that both sides are gonna now be 75. So independent climate control is there. Our fan speed is on the screen, or it's also on the knob here. Now, one of the things you guys might have noticed is that the climate page continues to drop down. There's a timer for that. Right now, it's probably set up to 10 seconds. If your customer or you decide you want to leave that timer on longer, or you don't want that page to time out, basically all you have to do is you come into settings, you go into system, Down at the bottom, you're gonna go in the factory settings. You enter the code 1660, press OK. It goes to the setup page. You're gonna swipe up all the way to the bottom. Swipe up all the way to the bottom, and there's an option called climate timeout. Right now it's set to 10 seconds. Touch it, and your options are now 10, 15, 20, or 30 seconds. So you can leave it for 30 seconds. I'm gonna select off. I'm gonna go back to the home screen. I'm gonna now press the climate page, and now the climate page will not time out. It'll always stay there until I decide to swipe the bottom banner over to the right and press the home button. That's the only time this page is gonna ever time out from this point forward. Again, it's user selectable, and you can make it so that it takes longer to time out, or you can make it so that it doesn't time out. So I'm gonna swipe over to the right, I'm gonna press the home button, and now we're back to our home screen. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over the process of pairing an Android device. So here we go, start with Bluetooth. Now remember, the Car Auto app has the allow auto boot function. So right after we do that, we're gonna go into Bluetooth. We're gonna go into the chain link button. We're gonna select pair new device. We're now gonna grab an Android phone. We're gonna go into settings, connections, Bluetooth, turn Bluetooth on. And it's already scanning for devices. My phone already came up on the radio's display. I'm gonna select it. The phone is gonna now ask me if I wanna pair, select pair. It's gonna ask me if I wanna allow my contacts. And then I'm gonna select allow. And now Android Auto is launching just like that. And that's how easy this process is. Usually Android Auto takes a little longer to load the information. Usually iPhones load a little faster. And so here is Android Auto in all of its glory. So these are the apps. Here's the different view modes. And again, this is just one app, you guys. This is just one app out of everything else that this radio has. Now keep in mind that as far as internet connectivity, you can do Wi-Fi hotspot from your phone, or you can reach out to us so we can help you basically with a SIM card solution. A lot of these providers don't have a clue on how to help you with that, especially when it comes to setting up the plan, IMEI numbers and stuff like that. So to have a hassle-free process of getting a SIM card for your radio, let us know. We'll help you with that process. We have both Verizon and T-Mobile contacts that we can refer you to, and they will help you obtain that process, streamline that process. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. It's just a matter of reassembling a few panels back in the dash, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.